Canto 3, Chapter 29, text number 16, 3:29, 16. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udhirayat madhishnya darshana sparsha puja stutyabhi vandanai bhuteshu madbhavanaya satvena sangama mena cha madhishnya darshana sparsha puja stutyabhi vandanai bhuteshu madbhavananya satvena sangamena cha. Madhishya darshana sparsha puja stutyabhi vandanai bhuteshu madbhavanaya satvena sangamena cha madhishya darshana sparsha puja stutyabhi vandanai. We've had our problems with the sound system this visit. At least no screeching this morning. Let's see what happens. Purport. Temple worship is one of the duties of a devotee. It is especially recommended for neophytes, but those who are advanced should not refrain from temple worship. There is a distinction in the matter of neophyte and an advanced devotee appreciate the Lord's presence in the temple. There's a distinction in the manner a devotee, a neophyte, and an advanced devotee appreciate the Lord's presence in the temple. A neophyte considers the Archa Vigraha, the statue of the Lord, to be different from the personality of Godhead. He considers it a representation of the Supreme Lord in the form of a deity. But an advanced devotee accepts the deity in the temple as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He does not see any difference between the original form of the Lord and the statue. There he is again, statue. Or Archa, form of the Lord in the temple. This is the vision of a devotee whose devotional service is in the highest stage of bhava, or love of Godhead. Whereas a neophyte's worship in the temple is a matter of routine duty. Paragraph. Temple worship is one of the functions of a devotee. He goes regularly to see the deity, nicely decorated, and with veneration and respect, he touches the lotus feet of the Lord and presents offerings of worship, such as fruits, flowers, and prayers. At the same time, to advance in devotional service, a devotee should see other living entities as spiritual sparks, parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. A devotee is to offer respect to every entity that has a relationship with the Lord, because every living entity originally has a relationship with the Lord as a part and parcel. A devotee should try to see all living entities on the same equal level of spiritual existence. As stated in Bhagavad Gita Pandita, one who is learned sees equally a very learned Brahmana, a Shudra, a dog, and a cow. He does not see the body, which is only an outward dress. He does not see the dress of a Brahmana, or that of a cow, or of a hog. He sees the spiritual spark, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. If a devotee does not see every living entity as part and parcel of the Lord, he is considered a prakrita bhakta, a materialistic devotee. He is not completely situated on the spiritual platform. Rather, he is in the lowest stage of devotion. He does, however, show all respect to the deity. Paragraph. Although a devotee sees all living entities on the level of spiritual existence, he is not interested in associating with everyone. Simply because a tiger is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, it does not mean that we embrace him, the tiger, because of his spiritual relationship with the Supreme Lord. We must associate only with persons who have developed Krishna consciousness. Paragraph. We should befriend and offer special respect to persons who are developed in Krishna consciousness. Other living entities are undoubtedly part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but because their consciousness is still covered and not developed in Krishna consciousness, we should renounce their association. It is said by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that even if one is a Vaishnava, if he is not of good character, His company should be avoided, although he may be offered the respect of a Vaishnava. Anyone who accepts Vishnu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is accepted as a Vaishnava. But a Vaishnava is expected to develop all the good qualities of the demigods. Final paragraph. The exact meaning of the word Satvena is given by Sridhar Swami as being synonymous with Dhairyena, or patience. So let's go back to the word for word. Satvena. Satvena. By the mode of goodness. The exact meaning of the word Satvena is given by Sridhar Swami as being synonymous with Dhairyena, or patience. One must perform devotional service with great patience. One should not give up the execution of devotional service because one or two attempts have not been successful. One must continue. Sri Rupa Goswami also confirms that one should be very enthusiastic and execute devotional service with patience and confidence. Patience is necessary for developing the confidence that Krishna will certainly accept me because I'm engaging in devotional service. One has only to execute service according to the rules and regulations to ensure success. And in reading this purport, there's many thoughts. One of them is this effort to distribute sets of Srimad Bhagavatam is really important, because where are people going to get this understanding? Like, this is just textbook understanding, what to speak of assimilating and becoming. But what's the standard? So the context, of course, is Kapila Deva is instructing his mother, who has the qualification to understand. And many people, at least let them have the opportunity to understand, or to hear, however much they understand. And you have to start somewhere. So, as our founder Acharya, wishing to elevate people to Krishna consciousness from the other end of the spectrum, Bhagavatam is very important. And as he's traveling around the world as a world Acharya, he's giving instructions to the world. He knows his audience, and they're mostly uncivilized people. And somehow or another, this elevated Bhagavad Dharma instruction is to be imparted somehow or another. So as the discussion with Devahuti is becoming in steps more elevated, more elevated, more elevated. Similarly, according to the knowing the audience, he doesn't hold back. He's very explicit about standards and training. Another point is, as I was reading this particular purport before the class and then during the class, my thoughts were going to different individuals who I'm interacting with that are struggling with something or another something, or multiple somethings. And the standard is high. And while the standard is high, that's the standard of respecting all living entities. While respecting all living entities, it doesn't mean read the sentence. Simply because the tiger is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord does not mean that we embrace him because of his spiritual relationship with the Supreme Lord. We must associate only with persons who have developed Krishna consciousness. And then, with the person who has developed Krishna consciousness, there's gradations. Going back to the earlier part of the purport, there's the Prakrita Bhakta, and they're Vaishnavas, they're Bhaktas. They worship the deity, and they don't have the refinement of respecting all living entities, or many living entities, or any living entity, but they have some regard for the Lord, and so they see the deity form as a statue, and as a duty, they come, and we see it all the time. People come, and they see the deity, they stand there for a few moments, and then they leave. And that's good. I mean, there's better than good, but that's good. And so temples where deities are established for Prakrita Bhaktas, it's good. And then how to elevate the Prakrita Bhakta to the next stage. That's where there's some challenge or some opportunity at the same time. And like Premananda's question yesterday, we went off on that question. So there's how to move, why and what to do. Persons come together and they have some sense of, my intention is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Look out, here I come. I mean, she didn't put that phrase in, but the sense of entitlement and not being accepting of others. So how to there's elaborate, as I was reading this purport twice, there's elaborate discussion on the Madhyama Adhikari. And Madhyama Adhikari is instructed to see distinctions between gradations of living entities. And then there's all living entities, and then there's civilized living entities, and then there's Vaishnavas, and there's gradations amongst Vaishnavas. And respect goes to every living entity, and gradations of respect go to the position of that living entity, according to consciousness. So a special respect goes to persons who have developed Krishna consciousness. And many, without proper training, we don't have the yardstick for measuring who's advanced in Krishna consciousness, because there may be something external and something else internal. And there's so many variables. It's not cookie cutter. It's not clear cut. And therefore, one's personal purification and the great and as far as staying under the guidance of someone that is at least mature and exemplary, to some degree exemplary, not necessarily a perfect soul, but exemplary Vaishnava, being respectful of those individuals and being guided by those individuals. So the verse is diverse, and the purport is more diverse, and then the subtleties are more diverse than that. But there's guidelines, so that in this case, Devahuti can understand from her son, Kapila Dev, the personality of Godhead, how to advance on the path of pure devotional service, because that's the explanation of devotional service, but it's pure devotional service. It's chapter 29. He's been on this topic for a number of chapters, and it's in gradations, going up and up and up. So that it's a high standard, but it's good to know what that high standard is. And then built within the purport, the explanation of the verse, is the Majjhima Adhikari as opposed to only exclusively the Uttama Adhikari. The Uttama Adhikari is indicated. And then within the purport, there's the Majjhima that's not there yet. So the audience is not there yet. They're given the instruction of what the Uttama form is, and also some idea of how to get there by offering this principle of being very patient with oneself and therefore with others. Charity begins at home, right? Being patient with oneself and being patient with others in the mood of satvena. I like the paragraph. I'll amplify it a little bit. The exact meaning of the word satvena. So we'll go back to the verse. Satvena asangamena, with detachment. Satvena, by the mode of goodness, with detachment. Cha. The translation of the verse. He should see the spirit, see in the spirit of renunciation, asangamena. You should see in the spirit of renunciation from the mode of goodness, and see every living entity as spiritual. So now, in the purport, the exact meaning of the word satvena is given by Sridhar Swami as being synonymous with dharyena, or patience. I don't know if it struck you as curious, but it's curious. One must perform devotional service with great patience. So that's a symptom of satvena. Let's say it the other way. Supposing one isn't in the mode of goodness, you're impatient. So being enthusiastic at the same time being patient sounds like go and stop. It's not. It's satvena, dharyat, or dharyena. It's a mode of goodness. Enthusiasm in the mode of goodness, in contrast to passion and ignorance. The passion is we do something because we want a result. We're expecting the result will come quickly because I'm in the mode of passion. And after all, I'm good because I'm doing what's to be done to get the good thing. So mode of passion is in strains in different degrees in everybody, and every conditioned soul. So enthusiasm and endeavoring with the mode of goodness, dharyat, satvena. One should not give up the execution of devotional service because one or two attempts have not been successful. One must continue. Sri Rupa Goswami has confirmed that one should be very enthusiastic to execute devotional service with patience and confidence. Patience is necessary for developing the confidence that Krishna will certainly accept me because I'm engaging in devotional service. So, it's restoring a broken relationship or forgotten relationship or, neglected relationship through the medium of devotional service. So those three, patience is necessary. I like this sentence. Patience is necessary for developing the confidence. It's not the language at least it doesn't flip it the other way. I have confidence that Krishna is kind, and therefore I'll be patient because Krishna is kind. And I'll be enthusiastic because, Scripture says and teachers say, and so I'm maintaining enthusiasm because it's good to be enthusiastic. You can't get you can't get very far without being enthusiastic. You can't be complacent. You can't be lax. Enthusiastic. But at least the way that Prabhupada is structuring this particular purport is connecting it to what Kapila Deva is describing to Devahuti. This with detachment principle of with detachment, seeing all living entities as parts of the Supreme. We'll see it the opposite. Supposing I have a material conception of what respect above the living entities looks like or feels like. Supposing it's common, a material idea of seeing other living entities. I was having a discussion just yesterday, lengthy discussion about keeping a respectful distance, because somebody over there or a group of somebodies over there, or like the issue that Premananda was bringing up yesterday, some dissension in the community. So it's not isolated to one place or another place. It's just it's not sufficiently developed. It's not matured development of these two very important principles: deity worship and respecting living entities. Pandita Samadarshana. And what does it look like? What does it feel like? So we're trying to be devotees, and we're huddling around the temple activities to help one another, and then sometimes there's dissension. It's not a surprise. You bring a bunch of living entities together and put them in a bag and jump the bag around, they're going to bump into each other. So that's okay. It's okay. It's not a surprise. It's not abominable. It's just how do we handle it? How do we deal with the purification that's involved? And then just maintaining respectful distance. Go back. Although a devotee sees all living entities on the level of spiritual existence, he's not interested in associating with everyone. We must associate only with persons who have developed Krishna consciousness. Now that's speaking of intimacy, not snobbiness. Respect without, a haughty attitude or condescending attitude or something. Respectful in all circumstances, even when something is clearly out of bounds. And it happened during Prabhupada's time, dissension. Because he got, the same example, a bunch of people, the spirit souls, attracted to him, and then ego, then ego clashes and, groupism and what it was like to be the founder Acharya of the Hare Krishna movement. Because there was dissension amongst the leaders, what to speak of the rank and file. Because of his spiritual gift, he was able to continue to lift people who were having dissension, and at least in some cases elevate them above the dissension and be appreciating. And so, no, that's when Prabhupada was present. Now Prabhupada's not physically present. Therefore, we have his Bhaktivedanta purports. And then persons that are understanding of those and living accordingly, and jnana vijnana astikyam brahmakarma swabhavajam. The brahmanas are very important persons in the social structure. Not just knowledge, book knowledge, but practical application of the book knowledge. And then, because of that, some purification, elevation. And then back to with patience, sattvena. This simple verse is really packed. We could spend some more time unpacking the purport, but I think I'll end because the discussions in the morning classes are really extensive and lively. So, any comments or questions? Jivana?
I have a comment and a question, Maharaj. This morning I was reading part of the section that you've been speaking on in the evenings. And I noted in one of the purports, Prabhupada, because you were speaking about how Prabhupada was, as a world acharya, looking at his movement and sometimes seeing dissension. And in one of the purports, he relates Devaki's fear to his fear of whether this movement will survive or not. I thought it was very interesting that Devaki had this mixed, and he talks about this in the purport, that she has this mixed, as you were explaining so many times, of Aishwarya as well as this Vatsalya mood. And so Prabhupada spoke of his relationship with the movement in a similar way. My question, Maharaj, was related to seeing living entities as spiritual beings, yet choosing one's association wisely. And specifically, he said that those who are developed in Krishna consciousness, in Madhurya Kadambini as well as in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Acharya describe three features that one is recommended to look for in association: Sajatiya, Snigdasya, and Vara. Sajatiya being like-mindedness, Snigdasya is affection, and Vara meaning one who is more advanced than I am. So my question is, could you explain a little bit around this idea of Sajatiya, like-mindedness? Because it seems like not just necessarily someone who is more developed in Krishna consciousness, but it seems like personality types and how we, what we like to do in Krishna consciousness has a big influence on who we are attracted to hang out with, so to speak, or to associate with.
Well, the dynamic that's going on all the time, it's really easy to observe. For example, kirtan, or for example, drama, or for example, deity worship, or for example, yagyas, or for example, preparing for the Janmashtami festival, the service-oriented persons that like to do service-oriented things. So like-minded according to psychophysical nature. But it's not the only, that there's three, but especially the third one is indicative. So what you're suggesting that these three was a nice answer to Premananda's question yesterday, or part of an answer, like-minded. But then supposing there's a difference of mindedness between two persons that are in the kirtan group, or two persons that are in the festival organization group, or two persons that are in the deity worship group, or whatever, in the kitchen or something, different areas of service, then looking up to those that are particularly qualified and aspiring to learn from them, and seeing their nice example and taking guidance from them when one bumps into a wall or some difficulty. Those three criterion are criterion for selection of association. And the selection is that respect goes to everyone, and then there's some of the everyones that I choose, hopefully wisely, to make a stronger connection with. And the like-mindedness is a very natural one. It's especially valuable for those who are Vaishnavas, that, birds of a feather flock together. So criminals like being with criminals. And honest people like being with honest people. And politicians seem to like being with politicians and bashing each other and slugfest, and the best man wins. And then somebody else is the best man. And, they like that spirit. So that's a material like-mindedness. But for those that are seeing the goal of life more clearly, then like-minded association is persons who have similar disposition, as I do. And then there's other factors. I mean, my mind, I'm silent because I'm thinking of how I applied myself to that principle. And sharing two little things. One of the things that I have found that the devotees in general like is when they see this senior devotee and that senior devotee come together and do stuff together. It's meaningful. It's heart-moving. And so, aside from the senior devotee that gets together with the senior devotee, so just recently I did this with Tamahar. And there's details. His health is a major obstacle. And because of his health situation, chemotherapy and the whole 9 yards. So his health has been, his capacity has greatly reduced. Anyway, it was meaningful for him. It was meaningful for me to be in that relationship with him, and meaningful for the audience to see the two of us interacting that way. And then how do you select who the like-minded persons? Back to your question. We did service together for such a long time. Many years of many things. And so there's a natural affection. But because of his health, he kind of like dropped off the radar screen to the world, because he was just dealing with what he could deal with. And then his health with Parkinson's, and so that without getting into selecting persons with whom to engage in service together. So it's become a nice meditation for me, who are persons that are compatible in terms of disposition and intensity and nature and so forth, and then do things together, and it's enlivening for everyone. I could give a number of other examples, but it's really nice. It's really quite natural.
And in finding that kind of association, where there's like-mindedness and affection, it naturally subsides the other piece of dissension in the community, it seems like.
And if you're looking for it, you'll find it. If you're not looking for it, then you won't find it. And then you won't find. Then the dissension stays at a peak, or spikes from time, and then becomes more quiet, or the waves of the material energy move. But all of the material well-being follows spiritual well-being, like the shadow follows the object that's casting the shadow. Okay, something else?
Guru Maharaj, what is the difference between the detachment and renunciation? So you explain the detachment as seeing the living entity as part and parcel, but the renunciation looks like it's outwardly. So I did not understand the difference.
Well, outwardly comes from inward. I mean, what's in comes out. So there's a behavior that's the outside, but with detachment, it's like going down the path of spiritual progress as a grihastha. So as a grihastha makes choices, and for different reasons, but for choices that are increasing material attachment by design. There was just marriage. And then what comes after marriage? Commonly, there's other things that come after. So, and then you're building your little empire while being detached or renounced. So it's your question is, are they synonymous? If they're not synonymous, how are they different? Renunciation mean they're quite similar, but just like taking the sannyas order, it's a standard where by standard it's without material affinity. Without material affinity, like Prabhupada was such a sannyasi that he could live with next to nothing. At the same time, he could be given opulence and not be disturbed when it came and not be disturbed when it was absent. That's renunciation. I remember very clearly when in Los Angeles, Prabhupada arrived at the airport. They arranged to pick him up in a big limousine. And then there was an interview afterward that he came to the temple, and some reporter said, Swamiji, they picked you up in this big limousine. I thought sannyasis, renunciates are supposed to be renounced. Why the big limousine? And Prabhupada, turned around and said, it was a black car, should have been a gold car. Yukta Vairagya. So Vairagya is detachment, but it's similar to renunciation, but engaging in things with detachment. So like this example, or the other example of a grihastha. How to live your lives as grihasthas in such a way that purposefully it's appropriate for my situation because XYZ, and therefore I'm accepting this and that without abandoning the principle. The goal is Krishna with detachment. And when someone has that spirit, then they're on the spiritual path. And someone doesn't have that spiritual that detachment, then their renunciation is artificial. It's so called, and some people do that. It's so called. Anyway, it's a little bit like in response to your question. It's a little bit like a Venn diagram. You know what a Venn diagram is? It's like that. There's some overlap, but they're not identical. That's why there's two terms. Renunciation means giving up, and detachment may mean accepting, but not being attached to. That's what's being said here in the verse.
I just wanted to also express what you were just saying about it's very enlivening for the audience to watch you interacting with
this one, that one.
Sitting in the audience in Gita Nagari and watching Garuda Prabhu and your interactions, and even just sitting here and watching the Bhakti Sandarbha recordings. They're such precious moments of learning in how to interact with the Vaishnava. So thank you very much for these opportunities that have been available to us, Guru Maharaj.
That's it?
I have a few questions, and I feel embarrassed with the number of questions I have, but whatever you would be willing to entertain.
Go forward.
There was a sentence in the purport, he does not see the body. Would you be willing to explain that?
Well, you can see the body, but that you don't identify the body as the self. Next.
Maharaj, there's this beautiful section where Narada Muni is talking to Yudhishthira Maharaj about first we need to come to the platform of being a human being to even come to devotional service. And there was a period of time when you were extensively lecturing on that series, going from place to place. That was very impactful. And in this purport, Prabhupada is saying, human being, here he says demigod. A Vaishnava should develop the qualities of a demigod. This is taking it up so many notches further.
Keep going. Vaikuntha.
And we hear this teaching from Bhaktivinoda Thakur that take one anartha and work on it for 5 years minimum. And I'm linking that to what Prabhupada is explaining about dhairena. So this patience of sticking with it, picking something that is a major obstacle. I've been doing that in my life and really staying committed for years working on that. So the question that arises is, I don't know how many years I have remaining. So it seems like that principle of taking one anartha and working on it for 5 years minimum, it's not exclusive. As we work on a particular anartha, I'm assuming the purification spills over to other areas. Is that a correct understanding?
Of course. And I'll modify. The example I give hundreds of times. The horse pulls the cart, not the cart pulls the horse. So what's the horse? And it's bhajana kriya based upon sadhu sangha. And then comes an arjuna vritti. So the focus goes to bhajana kriya and sadhu sangha. And there comes the power for anartha nivritti. So what is it that, is it possible for you or me or Bhaktivinoda Thakur to overcome anartha X? No. It's just a qualifier to what it means to work on something. You emphasize, if you try to overcome something that's unwanted, it's going to take more than 5 years. It's going to take 5 lifetimes, because that's not how things that are unwanted are removed. It's the spiritual principle. Light diminishes darkness. To turn up the light, and then the darkness is diminished. No, it's good for me, for anyone, to recognize while I'm striving. And this is particular for your question, or responsive to your question. As I'm striving for bhajana kriya and sadhu sangha in a qualitative way, I start to get a little clearer picture of what that anartha is and its friends, its companions. And as much as I may try to overcome this unwanted thing and its friends, I don't have the capacity. So then it's going back to the sadhu sangha bhajana kriya. I'm calling to Krishna for help, for the strength, the spiritual strength to overcome this shortcoming or unwanted tendency. I can perceive the unwanted tendency better on the strength of bhajana kriya and sadhu sangha. And the right sadhus will tap me on the shoulder and say, look out. In a kindly way, not in a condemning or harsh way. So I'm commenting on the 5-year plan. It's not that we can overcome anarthas, but Krishna can take us beyond them. The light can diminish the darkness. It's just a modification or a qualifier of explaining working on something for 5 years, because it can be misleading. It can be the doership spirit when that's not how it works. Okay.
And finally, Guru Maharaj, there is this mention of renunciation and the mode of goodness in this translation. And there's the whole chapter in Bhagavad Gita that is dedicated to different things in the different modes. So food and the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, and so forth. And interestingly, renunciation is talked about in the following chapter, which is the 18th chapter. Renunciation in the mode of goodness is renouncing material association. So a question that comes to my mind is there such a thing as, something in the mode of Shuddha Sattva? So like renunciation in the mode of ignorance, passion, goodness, but then is there renunciation in Shuddha Sattva, and similarly other things in Shuddha Sattva?
Why not?
So what is that, Guru Maharaj? I'm wondering, what is the
Krishna consciousness? And who is the model of Krishna consciousness? We'll start with our founder Acharya, and he accepted in renunciation, or did without, and it was just fine. And it wasn't elated or disturbed with having or having not. Prasanna, you usually have a nice question or two.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I was debating if I should ask you. A senior devotee that I look up to some time back she spoke in, this was in the context of Grihasthashram, and she said that, children need to see loving exchanges, respect between the parents. It's important. But if there are conflicts, it's important for the children to see how they get resolved as well. She said both are important. And we've heard from you, how the training we've received from you in all these years is respect.
You're going to get it again, too.
Pardon me?
You're going to get it again.
No, and I've seen practically how, I'm not sure if it resolved the conflict at that point in time, but it certainly resolved the knot in the heart. At that point in time and in later years as well, we have carried that. So I just wanted to hear this comment, like, since this conversation was happening, I was thinking, in the Ishopanishad we hear Vidyam cha Vidyam, this seeing respectful, loving exchanges, but also seeing how the conflicts can be resolved. Like, are both important?
Yeah. You're asking for confirmation of what...
Yes.
And yeah, confirmed. Now, the parenting topic can take forever. So I'm not planning to have a class right now on parenting topic. But the answer to your question is yes, both are important. And I'll give a recent example. This was this seminar on Bhakti Sandarbha with Tamahar. And, he and I were sharing, when I go to a lecture, we have lunch one day out of the time that I'm there. And doing different, because of years of service. And he was describing with enthusiasm, like non-stop enthusiasm, about his reading in Bhakti Sandarbha and this realization, that passage, and, very enthused. When his health is a wreck, he's like very enthused. So that's like, fan that spark. So I made a suggestion. He's, let me think about it, because, so finally it happened. It took about a year and a half or something, but it finally happened. And his first class, he hadn't had public speaking in a long time. It was really good for him and the community to see him again, coming out of seclusion, and he was over prepared. He went really fast and gave a ton of stuff. And then my class following his class, because he was the lead class, was really simple, in content. But so the second class, he completely changed his format. And, we'll do this again another time, but, I don't know how much the audience picked up on what was going on, but something they picked up on what was going on, because there was this major change in his approach. And so, from the audience perspective, it can be a conflict, and then how the conflict gets resolved through loving dealings. I didn't twist his arm or, give him critique or something. It's just loving exchange is the way that things are nicely resolved. When there wasn't a conflict between him and me. It was, being in service to another Vaishnava, and then something that's conflicting within him or within me or within someone else, it can get resolved. And that's a nice lesson for the audience to see. It's similar to what you're saying, for the children and the family to see. And it's not like it has to happen presto, but over time. Star Wars gets quiet. When there's the principle of respect, because of the principle of respect. And then what respect for what? Respect for differences and respect for samenesses. And then comes, this is another comment upon your comment I'm going to end. Some persons haven't had that experience growing up. And when they haven't had that experience growing up, something is going on. And they're reading stuff according to that autobiography where it wasn't a wholesome exchange between persons, mom and dad, or something, 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 or something, something, something. And then they're carrying that. So there's a lot of that that goes on. So it takes generations, it takes patience, Satrina, to get to that place where example setting becomes possible, and being patient to work one's way through that in the micro and then in the macro, a community or the social organization of ISKCON. Because different people, different points of view, different cultures, different language, differences. I'm going to end. There may be more questions, but I'm going to end because of time.